This show is for women who train harder, think bigger, and live bolder. Here, we don't level up. We set the standard. Strength, strategy, success. I'm Katie Fleece. Welcome to The Smoke Show. Welcome back to another episode of The Smoke Show. Look, today we are talking about something that hits close to home for a lot of women. And I actually got a message earlier this week that I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to talk about this because this is something I think that's actually more common than not. All right. So a lady wrote in and asked this. She said, as I'm getting back in shape, I am finding myself much less attracted to my spouse who does not care for himself health-wise. I love him, but I'm just not that into him anymore. So how do people manage this? And then she goes on to say, like, thankfully, our kids love working out with mommy, so they are getting that good influence. And he's a great dad, but he's just not into doing what it takes to live an active, healthy lifestyle. So she says, would love your feedback on this, would love your take on this. This message is so real. And like I said in the beginning, I do think that this is something that is very, very common. It's something that you probably just don't say out loud very often. But I want to start by sharing actually a very personal story that might shed some light on this because it's actually kind of similar. So my husband was in the exact same boat as the spouse that she's referring to in that message. He would constantly complain about his body, about his energy, about his confidence, about the way he looked. He would always make comments like that every single day. But then he would do absolutely nothing about it. And you know what? One of the best things I ever did for him was I literally just shot it to him straight. And you know what else I did? I actually signed him up. This is not a joke. I signed him up for a consultation call with Superhuman. Dead serious. And I told him, I said, look, in a loving way, I'm actually kind of sick of hearing you complain about this. So if it's really that important to you, you'll do what it takes to change it. Now, I love him no matter what, but if we're talking about attraction specifically, then I can confidently say I definitely prefer the fit, hop, ripped version of him. But me telling him that came as it was an act of love, right? And he is so thankful that I laid it out for him like that. Because here's the thing. Love isn't just accepting everything. Sometimes love means holding somebody accountable. Sometimes love is refusing to enable someone's excuses. Sometimes love is saying the hard thing that needs to be said. And when you transform physically, you might outgrow some relationships, okay? When you start prioritizing your health, some people might not be fully on board. When you start setting boundaries, some people might not like that version of you. And that includes your spouse. The truth is, when one person dramatically improves themselves and the other person kind of stays stagnant, it definitely creates this gap, right? And it's not your fault and it's not necessarily their fault, but it is real. And you can feel that gap. So my suggestion would be to have an honest conversation about what you need and see if they are willing to meet you there. That's exactly what I did with my husband. And like I said, it came from a place of love. So it didn't eventually turn into resentment. Because if you don't address it, I can promise you it will make you resentful. Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, that's cool, but what if my situation is actually a little different? What if my spouse actually does resist my transformation? And that might happen. But here's the thing. You still do not need permission to take care of yourself. And this is where I actually want to pause and I want to talk about something that comes up over and over and over again every single week, probably every day, if I'm being completely honest, in conversations happening, not just on our, the conversations that our advisors at Superhuman are having, but even the conversations I'm having inside of my DMs, okay? And it's this idea of giving yourself permission to win. Because here's what I've noticed. We're out here asking for permission from everyone else except the person who actually matters, right? Here's what I mean by that. We're asking for our husbands if it's okay to spend money on our health. We're asking for our husbands or spouses for permission to get healthy. We're asking our kids if mommy can go to the gym. We're asking our friends if they think we're crazy for wanting to transform, okay? But when was the last time you actually asked yourself for permission? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and you said, I give myself permission to be the healthiest, happiest, most confident version of myself? I'm going to tell you something that might sting a little bit, but it needs to be said, okay? The reason you keep asking everyone else for permission is because you haven't given it to yourself. So it's easy to put the blame on others. Hey, it's Katie Fleece, head of the female division at Superhuman and your host here on Smoke Show. Listen, if you've been waiting for a sign to go after your strongest, fittest, hottest body, this is it. And I'm here to tell you, you don't need anyone else's permission. It's time to claim the body and the life you deserve. Go to smokeshowbody.com and take the first step toward building the ultimate version of you. Now back to the show. You haven't decided that you're worthy of the transformation that you want. You haven't decided that your dreams matter as much as everyone else's. You're waiting for someone else to validate your desires because you don't trust yourself enough to validate them. But here's what I need you to understand. Nobody else is going to give you permission to win. Nobody else is going to say, yes, you deserve to be happy. Yes, you deserve to feel sexy in your own skin. Yes, you deserve to prioritize your health. You have to say that for yourself. That permission, that has to come from you. We had a client who spent like 3+ years trying to get her husband on board with her health journey, trying to convince him that she was worthy of being healthy, okay, before she joined our program. 3+ years, 3+ years of her life was wasted waiting for someone else to give her permission to take care of herself. And you know what happened when she finally decided to move forward without his approval necessarily? Guess what? He saw the results. He saw how much happier she was. He saw how much more confident she became. He saw their marriage transform. And suddenly, and he doesn't mind me asking this, I'm not naming any names, but suddenly, guess what? Then he was asking how he could get involved. But she had to be the one to give herself permission first. She had to be the one that moved, to make the move. She had to decide that her health, it wasn't up for negotiation. She had to stop treating her own well-being like it was optional. So I want you to actually practice something with me right now, okay? I want you to say these words out loud. It might sound corny, but I promise, okay? Just say them out loud, okay? Here we go. I give myself permission to want more for my life. I give myself permission to prioritize my health. I give myself permission to spend money on my transformation. I give myself permission to take up space. And lastly, I give myself permission to win. Now, if it felt uncomfortable, great, okay? Because that discomfort is basically your old programming fighting against you right now, fighting against your new reality that you have to set for yourself. That discomfort is part of you that's been conditioned for years to settle, to put everyone else's needs before your own. And if you're a woman right now, odds are you've been putting everyone else's needs before your own for years, maybe even decades. But giving yourself permission, hear me on this, it does not make you selfish. It makes you the kind of woman who models for her children what it looks like to value yourself. It makes you the kind of wife who shows up fully in her marriage instead of resentfully. It makes you the kind of person who contributes from a place of overflow, right? Instead of feeling depleted all the freaking time. I'm sure you've heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, okay? You cannot give what you don't have. So if you want to love others well, you have to start by loving yourself well first. And loving yourself means giving yourself permission, there's that word again, to pursue the things that make you feel alive, to pursue the things that make you healthy, to pursue the things that make you feel confident. So, how do you actually do this? How do you shift from asking for permission to asking for support? And this is where a lot of women get wrong. They're just asking for the wrong thing, okay? So it starts with how you frame the conversation. Now, I am not saying you shouldn't explain your decision to your spouse, but the way you explain it definitely matters. Okay? So here is what you say. You can literally say in your own words, look, if I don't do this for me, I'm going to end up resenting you, and I don't want that. So instead of me complaining to you every day about how miserable I am and how I don't like my body, I'm doing this for us so I can show up and be a better wife, be a better mom. I'm going to take this seriously and I'm going to go all in. And I'm not asking for permission, but I am asking for your support. See the difference? Does that make sense? Like, you're not giving them power over your happiness or over your decision. You're simply just informing them of your decision, and you're inviting them in to be a part of that journey. You're letting them know, like, hey, I want you to be a part of it. Also, can I just say, let's get real, okay? Do you really think that your husband is gonna prefer you sitting on the couch in baggy sweatpants all the time, eating a bag of Cheetos, No. Smearing your Cheeto dust on your pants. I can promise you they don't want that. But we've made up these stories in our heads thinking that that's what they want. Do you really think your husband's gonna say, you know what? I'd actually prefer you to die a premature death. God, well, if he does say that, run, okay? Red flag. That's not normal, okay? I'd prefer you to have a heart attack. No, I don't want you to feel sexy. No, I can promise you, they want you to feel sexy. But again, a lot of times it's all in our heads. And sometimes if they feel like, or if you feel like you don't have their permission, it may be coming from a place of trying to protect you because they've seen you quit on yourself so many times. The reality is the resistance, most of the resistance that you're imagining isn't even real. You're creating obstacles that don't exist because you're scared to take responsibility for your own transformation. Here's another truth bomb. Sometimes the resistance is real. Sometimes the people in your life will try to resist you because your growth threatens their comfort zone. Sometimes they'll sabotage your efforts because your success highlights their own stagnation. But you know what? That's still not a reason to stay stuck. That's not a reason to abandon your health. That's not a reason to abandon your goals or your dreams or whatever, all right? That's simply just information about who belongs in your life and who you maybe need to reevaluate. I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial, but it needs to be said, okay? Not everybody in your life deserves a vote, right? Your health is not up for discussion, okay? Your happiness should not be up for review, okay? The people who truly love you, they're going to want to see you thrive, okay? The people who think that you're crazy for wanting to transform your body or people who don't support you getting healthy, okay? They're more concerned with their own comfort. And that tells you everything you need to know about where they belong in your life. The bottom line is it's about support, not permission. Your transformation, like I said, it's not up for negotiation. Your happiness doesn't require anyone else's approval. So stop asking for permission to become the woman you're meant to be and start asking for support. And if you don't get it, keep moving forward anyway, because sometimes it takes you consistently showing up for the people around you that you love, that you want to stay in your life to go, she's different. She's leading the way. She's leading by example. And if she can do it, then I can do it. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one who has to live your life in your body. You're the only one who has to look at yourself in the mirror every morning. You're the only one who has to live with the regret of not trying, or to live with the regret of the satisfaction of not going for it. Okay? So give yourself permission to want more. Give yourself permission to invest in your health. Give yourself permission to live in a body that you genuinely love. Give yourself permission to win. And remember, the only permission that you need is your own. So what the heck are you waiting for? Until next time, I'll see you then. Thanks for joining me. Stay strong, stay strategic, stay unapologetic. This is Smoke Show.